Okay, big news in the equipment world in golf. Titleist have just released some sneaky images of their brand new TSR drivers,
Yes.
which are currently being seeded on tour.
Exciting times.
Now, Titleist are very clever at this, aren't they?
Yes.
Because typically they do this process where, whether it be in the golf ball, the irons, the wedges, the putters, whatever it may be, and certainly the drivers, they like to get it in the hands of the tour pros first, get some feedback, make a few tweaks before releasing it to me.
Yeah.
Basically to review, and then to the public.
Yeah, exactly. So for those who haven't seen this driver yet, we'll put some images on screen now. First things first, Rick, I think they look class.
I'm gonna say it.
Go on.
Best looking Titleist drivers I've seen for 10 years. 15 years.
I think I can agree. So they're called Titleist TSR, which follows on from the TSI series, which followed on from the TS series. What's unique with Titleist, like you said, is they typically release a driver every 2 years to the consumer. So every 2 years, a new driver. But 5-6 months before that, they give them to tour pros who put them into play. And that's why now some of these guys are going to be bagging these drivers this week. What are your first thoughts on looks? What are your thoughts on how Titleist go about this release? And also kind of more holistically, that kind of 2-year launch. Are you a fan of that?
Yeah, I am. I think in 2 years, you can move the needle. I think every year, like TaylorMade or Callaway and even Cobra have slipped into this trap now. Every year bringing out a new driver, you can make changes, you can, but they're not that big. Where every 2 years, like a Titleist or a Ping or other manufacturers as well, there's a bit more breathing space to go, okay, we can pump more energy into this. We can pump a little bit more research into this. We don't have to rush it out. And surely because of that, you get a better product. Like I said, they've carried on with this TSR, this TS kind of line. They like to call it family, which I've never quite understood this family. I don't think we've got any information of what the R stands for yet, have we? I don't believe so. Just looking through the release now.
I don't think so.
So we're going to just guess it's obviously Rick. You've got a lot of big names in the world of golf using Titleist drivers.
Well, Matt Fitzpatrick has just won, obviously, the US Open with a TSI 3, I think, in the bag.
Justin Thomas won the PGA Championship.
Yeah.
So you've got like big names. Well, Scotty Scheffler, does he use Titleist driver?
I think he... Oh, no, it's TaylorMade, isn't he?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, though, as well. This is in the press release from Titleist. Apparently, I didn't know this. Titleist is the most played driver on the PGA Tour, which I would never have guessed.
I like this little bulletin. TSI, so their previous drivers, is the winningest. Is that even a word?
I'm not sure. I don't know about that one. It may well be.
Winningest driver this season on the LPGA Tour. The winningest.
That's
great.
the thing. So we've seen these images so far. You will be getting them in your hands, hopefully in a couple of months, to get your review done, which will obviously feature on the main channel, Rick Shiels Golf. And I'm looking forward to seeing how you hit that. But in the meantime, there's going to be a lot of speculation about, are these drivers actually going to be longer? Are they going to be faster? Are they going to be more forgiving? But one thing I do think I like about the 2-year cycle, and this is more for the consumer, the person that's spending their hard-earned cash on a new driver. You know, when you go out and buy a new driver or an iPhone or a car, whatever it might be, a computer, you do know that's not going to be the current one forever, and that's just life, unfortunately. But with golf clubs, it can be quite frustrating when you buy your new driver in the season, mid-season, let's say March, April, May even, whatever it might be, and then 6 months later, there's another new one. I do like how Titleist and Ping as well keep their driver for that 2-year cycle, sometimes 18 months, but more like 2 years. You know, it does make you feel like you've got that current driver for longer. And I would be interested in the comments, if people are watching below, to comment below. You know, do you think that is a better way to go? Do you appreciate it more when your driver's newer for longer, or do you not care?
Yeah, I definitely think there's that the case, because if you manage to pick it up by the end of this year, like I said, you know it's going to be brand new for 2 years. Nothing's going to supersede it in that time frame. I've also just read another bullet point. Titleist is the PGA Tour's winningest driver as well.
Wow. So apparently with this lineup, then there's going to be 3 initially. So there's going to be the TSR 2, TSR 3, and then TSR 4 as well. I believe that the 2 is that kind of bigger footprint, but apparently what I have heard actually is that the 2 is going to go a little bit more pear-shaped and sit more like a 3, which some people will absolutely love. I used to love that back in the day when I was very confident with my driver. Now I'm not so confident. That's a shape I don't like. So it sounds like the TSI 2 and 3, for me this year, the TSR 2 and 3, I'm not probably going to looks off behind the ball.
Typically, the TSR or the 3 lineup, which again will be this year, is a little bit more for the better player.
Yeah.
Is a little bit more traditional pear shape. Sometimes the toe sits very open, like you say.
Yeah, that's what I've heard happens to the 2 as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Typically reduces a slightly lower spin than the 2. And then more recent years, Titleist have now started to bring out this TSR 4 lineup, which is the 4 is for your really fast swing speeds, for your really centerness of strike player who wants to get maximum distance and can afford to only get that from hitting the middle of the club face.
Well, yeah, and this is something we had a bit of a, well, you certainly had a bit of a, I don't use the word moan about, but I'll use that just for the short term, a moan about with Titleist with the TS line, and it was fair enough because they brought out a couple of years ago, well, 4 years ago it will be shortly, the TS2 and TS3. Then, was it a year or 9 months later, whatever it was, they brought out a TS4, which was the low spin model, and a TS1, which was the more forgiving, more friendly, certainly aimed at a more slower clubhead speed player. And we said at the time, those 4 drivers make sense as a family, absolutely no issue with those 4. But if you've had a golfer go for a fitting who's a Titleist fan, who's gone at a month after the driver's launch and said, look, I want a new driver, help me improve my game, and you go, well, that's the 2 we do. And they go, okay, well, let's say the TS2 works better for me. I'll buy that one. And then a few months later, you bring out TS1 that's not newer, but that is designed to increase a little bit of spin. They may have hit that one even better.
Yeah.
So really, brands should bring them all out as a family. They've kind of gone halfway there this year. They're bringing out 2, 3, and 4 together, but I have heard there will be a 1 later down the line. I still don't know why they do it later.
As long as, in my opinion, as long as they are upfront about that.
Yeah.
As long as they say, right, we are going to bring out a TSR 1, so if you are in that category, maybe just hold fire, because there's nothing worse than just being shocked. And suddenly it confused a lot of Titleist fans. They're buying a TS2 or TS3 driver, and then number 1 and 4 come out and they go, oh, are these new?
Yeah.
Like, have I not just bought a new driver? So, yeah, hopefully that's going to happen. It's interesting times. You are going to see him in play. You're going to see him in play in pretty much every single tour event because a lot of the Titleist drivers, a lot of the players start to switch straight in. I know players like Jordan Spieth has been quite hesitant to switch in the past. He's not a quick switcher, whereas a lot of players, maybe like a Justin Thomas, who switches without even thinking about it.
I've got a question for you, and one more thing on this. When TaylorMade bring out like the Stealth, which is such a different looking driver, obviously the black carbon head and the red carbon face, it looks so different from Sim 2. And also the technology story was so different and it was so much better. Then when there was golfers, I think it was like, Rob McIntyre, I think it was, didn't swap initially. It almost looked bad on TaylorMade that golfers would choose not to swap. It made you think, oh, maybe the new one isn't that good actually. But like you said then, with Titleist and certainly with the Pro V1 line, they have golfers using the Titleist Pro V1 ball from 6 years ago, 10 years ago in some instances, which is crazy. If golfers like, let's say, Justin Thomas or Matt Fitzpatrick don't swap the TSR straight away, would you still see it in the same way as you would TaylorMade, or would you kind of give them a pass because it's Titleist in a way?
Yeah, because Titleist don't go in with the ridiculously bold claims like TaylorMade do. Like TaylorMade are promising the world driver on driver on driver. And promising that much is hard to deliver on, as I've seen when I've tested the Stealth, where Titleist don't seem to come out with such outlandish claims. So I don't blame a player. Yeah, I don't blame a player going, you know what, I probably will move into that at some point, but I just love how I'm playing great with my TS whatever driver. I'm not going to change just yet. Like, don't force me. And also, to some degree, to the untrained eye, if you're just watching as a general golf fan, you might not know that Jordan Spieth isn't using the latest one because a lot of these drivers look similar. TaylorMade can't get away with that.
Well,
Callaway can't get away with that because instantly you can tell that's not the new one.
And that's the risk a brand takes. When you make a driver look so different, like a Stealth with a bright red face, it can be a win or it can be a loss. When a Scotty Scheffler tees up with a red face driver, you know what driver he's using.
Apart from what I just said a minute ago and I completely forgot.
Yeah, but equally, when you then see him in like I said, an old Titleist, you don't really realize it's not the newest one, but it's not as sometimes like sexy to see. So it's going to be an interesting time. We will, as you said, you hopefully will be the first to test them, to review them, which will be coming in the coming months. But exciting times
after all these bloody tour players.
I know, yeah.
Got to wait in line. Anyway, Titleist drivers dominated the late 90s, the early 2000s. They've lost away a little bit with drivers over the last few years. Is this the birth of a new era for Titleist drivers? We will soon find out. But you stay here, main channel, the first place you're going to find out honest opinion about the new Titleist drivers.